by getting some perspective as to why you're involved in education. Share for us why your organization makes the effort to be involved in K through 12 education. Mary Jane, do you want to start?
I'd love to. First, personally, I'm a grandmother and a parent of children who came through the system here, and I pay a lot of attention. My grandson is kind of tired of me asking about school constantly. I'm a teacher, and our charge at the department is to ensure that the students in Florida have equitable access to the highest quality instruction that's possible, and we take that very seriously, and including closing the achievement gap.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Yes, thank you. I represent Gulf Power Company. We are a regional electric utility, part of the Southern Company that serves just over 400,000 customers in Northwest Florida. So from a professional perspective, I'm involved for two reasons, because we have to have the talent we need to keep our company strong so we can continue to serve our customers. But also from an economic development perspective, we're very focused, as most utilities are, including Bobby and folks at Progress here, on growing the economy throughout the region that we serve. And lately in economic development, the buzzword, what site consultants really are focused on is what kind of talent do you have? It's no longer mostly about interchanges off of the interstate or proximity to the port. It's about the talent. So definitely trying to grow that economic edge in Northwest Florida is a key priority. But most importantly, like Mary Jane said, I'm a mom of four. Two who have gone through public education in Florida pre-Common Core, two who are going through now through Common Core. I care very much about their future, not what job they get really, but whether or not they're going to be able to use what they learn, and I'm very excited about Common Core implementation because of that.
Thank you. Dr. Davis?
I will echo the parent theme that's going through here. So I'm the father of two, and I expect my children to be able to go to school here and work here when they're done. And just relating something personal to me, when I went through K through 12 in Dade County Public Schools, I left the state to go to a school that I thought could put me at the front of the envelope, Georgia Tech. Then I went to another school in Massachusetts. I think we should be able to do that here in the state. And I think that is why I'm committed to K through 12 education here in the state, and also at a higher level. And then professionally, I love to be able to work in this state in which I live, and I don't right now. I do front of the envelope GPS testing that helps the warfighter. That's what the MITRE Corporation does. I'd love to do that in my state. And I think strengthening the talent pipeline, attracting businesses, growing the economy, all things that have been said here are reasons to say, not why, but why not? Why wouldn't we do that?
Dr. Fuller?
This is my second year with the Senate, and after 35 years in education, including some years at Florida State University with Laura, and I'm committed to the Senate President's mission to link education to jobs in Florida and growing the economy.
Thank you.
One thing that has not worked is not paying attention to what the student needs to have the knowledge they need to have to be successful at the next level, and paying more attention to content or what we've always done. And one of the advantages of the Common Core is they started with the output. What should our students know and be able to do when they graduate, as opposed to starting with kindergarten and building from there. So it's a different way of work with post-secondary folks at the table, with career folks at the table. The other thing is not having options that generate student interest, that they can move forward. And when they graduate, we want many of our graduates to have more than just a standard diploma. We also want them to have an industry certification or college credits because they took advanced placement courses. So when they graduate, more than the diploma, that the diploma is the minimum, but each student has, whether it's a pre-engineering program they took part of, or whether it's the university admissions requirements fulfilled, that they already have a step in the door to the next level.
Thank you. I would say what has worked, and I do want to say thank you to the Florida Department of Education. What has worked is that in the last 10 years, somewhat paralleling our legislature's approach to implementation of CAPE academies, but also really responding to kind of the demand-driven marketplace, business saying we aren't getting what we need as a result of K-12, and the community and college, now state college and university system saying the same. What we have had in the Florida Department of Education is an openness and willingness to talk and listen to business. And I work with the industry, the energy industry across the country, and hands down, every time I go talk to another state about, we have 17 career clusters in Florida, the 17th is energy. There are no other states that have that yet. There are 4 others that are trying to do that. When they ask me, how did you get that done? I said, well, at the time I called Loretta Cost and I said, hey, Loretta, I want to talk to you about something. And the fact, here's her response, and a standard response I've received from folks in our state Department of Education is, yeah, I'm not really even clear what you're talking about. We have never done anything like that, but let me give it some thought and get back to you. That is a great response. What typically happens is, no, we can't do that. There are 16 nationally, we're going to have 16. And so I think that has allowed us to already be innovative and respond to business. I will tell you that what I'm concerned about, both representing my company, my industry, and Workforce Florida, who is focused on making sure that every Floridian can enter and advance in Florida's workforce. What I'm very concerned about is the historic divide between academic and career and technical education, as if it is an either-or proposition. It is not. We must prepare all students for the eventuality of work. And that may be immediately following high school. It may be following a technical center certificate, a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, a post-baccalaureate degree. But we do need to make sure that our students can apply what they're learning in academics. And we can't treat professional development for academic side of the house education differently than we do that for career and technical education. And that's one of the other great things I think about Common Core. It really helps teachers learn a new how of implementing the whats, if you know what I mean. Teaching in a project-based, student-centered, inquiry-based atmosphere that allows students to practice applying concepts in a real-world setting. And so I think that we're going to make some great strides. The one other thing I still am very concerned about is what is happening before students become kind of members of the public education system in Florida. We often talk about the concerns of remediation costs in Florida being following high school. Our greatest remediation costs are in kindergarten. And any superintendent will tell you, sure, I can move a student 1 grade in 1 year of time, or make 1 year's progress in 1 grade. But let me be clear, when they enter at the developmental age of a 2-year-old, that means we have a 3-year-old at the end of kindergarten. And with many of our districts, students by October of their kindergarten year still testing, not ready to learn, that is a major community issue that I think we all need to embrace.
Very good. I'll be brief on this. I think that shipping works, and shipping in the sense of internships, apprenticeships, externships, and scholarships. So I was in Hamilton County last week, and what they want to do is move forward in CTEs, CAPE academies. And what we found over just the past couple of years with STEM Florida is that those programs that allow access to just advanced training for students and access to business-related approaches that allow them to do better in the classroom. That whole shipping concept, if you look at the Florida DOE, that is a concept that we must continue to advance, because if not, we'll find that we have very hollow teaching where students exit high school with no skills, no practical skills. And I think that digital learning is one way to kind of increase the shipping to get access to higher quality, out of school, after school concepts.
Dr. Fuller.
I think what's worked is transparency in Florida the last decade, showing what the budget is and where it's applied, talking about school results, talking about performance of students, trying to talk about how we're dealing with the difficult question of performance of teachers. But the simple transparency of moving information forward into the community, into parents' hands, is making a huge difference. As we travel the country, Florida has one of the most transparent systems right now in any aspect of education. School advisory boards get a chance to look at their school budgets. So, school boards have to post their budgets online. Anybody can drill down as deep as they want to find out where the money was spent. which is important in trying to do or be a leader in reforming education. The other thing that works is relevance. I think Florida's gained enormous relevance in their educational process the last decade. I have to follow with Jennifer's lead here. As I've traveled the rest of the country, they want to know how Florida has made the transition from, quote, education to relevance, and how we're making engaging our students in outcomes. What hasn't worked and will never work, and again, I have to defer to Jennifer. Always enjoy being on a panel with her. It's not career and academics. It's not career and or college. It's just an education. And I love your statement that eventually we're all going to, go to work, hopefully. So I think as we grow out of this idea that it's career and or, I think we're going to enjoy the benefits in Florida as far as economic development. In fact, as an advocate of the old phrase career, I think we're overtaking the academics. I think the academics are starting to lag behind what we're doing in the career fields, because we've got Leon County, some folks here from Leon. They've got a middle school over there that's doing Microsoft Office, Excel, Word, and PowerPoint presentation with 3 different platforms as a training mechanism to prepare the kids with tools to put them in high school so that they actually were able to use tools when they join the high school environment to make them much more successful. So I'll put that up against a geography class in 7th grade.
So can you just follow up on your thoughts on the tools? We all have tools, right? And it's kind of what people say about innovation, right? These things change your lifestyle, right? Versus, consumers of technology versus actually builders of technology. We talk about tools. Are we developing the tools, or we just want to have them know Microsoft Office so they can, get a job, right?
No, I think in response to you, I think it's getting these tools to allow the students to apply them where they're going to grow academically or as they try to pursue their next step. If it is just to go into the world of work right after graduation, they've got a set of tools to do that. If they choose to pursue a degree in economics, they've got some tools to help them get that far.
And then just one more. And then I'm just trying to get you to lean towards how you talk about that digital learning and that being a tool versus the practicality of just a relevance, a demand for it, and what the business community says, here is that demand, versus I just have this tool and it's nice, but I can't use it. Because there are many people with PhDs and higher degrees that can't get a job in this economy.
In my impression, in looking at the work world right now, there's a rising demand for certifications and skill sets that are actually definable versus the vague interpretation of what a degree is. A phrase high school diploma has, I don't know how you define that. Whether you go get a high school diploma from, was in New Hampshire for a week and spent some time with the folks up there talking about what their outcome is. I was in Nebraska, and I found out why they have such a high graduation rate.
Why is that?
Every school district gets to decide the graduation requirements. Number 2, they also get to decide what courses they take in order to graduate from that school district. And so I asked them how many school districts we had, and they had more school districts than we have cities. So when you start traveling and getting a sense, this word degree starts getting kind of soft, and we start looking at something that has portability and measurability as it moves around the country, and that's starting to improve with what we get in certifications with students. So.
It's my belief that as a Department of Education, our job is to make sure that the students have the problem-solving skills, the critical thinking skills, the work habits, so that they are employable. The devices are going to change. The jobs are going to be things that we probably can't even imagine. What my 9-year-old grandson is going to be doing when he's 30, I probably can't imagine right now, and the tools he'll have access to. So they have to have enough knowledge to have choices when they graduate, but they have to have enough problem-solving skills and critical thinking skills so that they can use that and adapt it and apply it to new situations. So similar to us learning to use our new phone, we use the knowledge of how we used our old phone. We read the directions, but we have to adapt and we have to problem solve to get that done. And it takes some initiative and some persistence, again, back to the practices that are part of the Common Core state standards that are beyond just content knowledge.
I agree. And I would also go back to, Mary Jane, what you said in your presentation earlier, using the math example, that not only would the students learn the algorithm, but they would learn why the algorithm functions the way that it does. And in our industry and other very technologically advanced industries, that's critical. We have many tools, whether it's an algorithm, a piece of equipment, machinery, or software that does perform functions for us. What we see, and I don't care, sorry, Jimmy, if they are Georgia Tech engineering graduates or a graduate from a high school with an industry certification, what we see time and again is that, sure, they can punch in the data and get the result, but do they know enough about how the system works to understand that might not be right? There's something missing here. And that is what we need to have our students understand, not just have that desire. We do time a lot of things in K through 12, not just to have that desire to get to an answer quickly, but to understand and be able to explain how the tool that we'll be increasingly adding into the instruction, how those tools help them find those answers, and how those tools might be useful or might not be useful in certain situations. Because in the workplace, if you rely entirely on the tools, depending on the work that you're responsible for, there can be dramatic results because tools will fail us at time, and we need our workforce to understand what's going into those tools. The other thing, Mary Jane just mentioned it, initiative. It is not K through 12's responsibility to create the people that end up filling society. However, very often the character of those individuals that will create our society is most often influenced by their K through 12 experience. And so any opportunity that educators or we as business or we as foundation board members have to be able to influence the character of the folks, and when I say character, I mean work ethic, I mean personal integrity, I mean putting your best foot forward every day, and yes, you're going to make mistakes, but guess what? Tomorrow is a new day. Things like that students just are not learning at home, that's what they got to know to be successful in life and in our workplaces. So every opportunity that we have to inspire them to learn those things and practice them in the safe environment of K through 12 will only help them as individuals and us as a society and workplace in the future, I'd say. Thanks.
I just add on to that, and just to say that there's a flexibility in the way you think and a perseverance in when your thinking doesn't work that we must kind of get across in K through 12. And what that does, it allows for opportunities to build self-confidence and then self-efficacy, meaning I've done something, I know I can do it, and it may not be the way that I think, but I've learned different ways to think, and that's what the hands-on, inquiry-based, non-teacher-centric, student-centric, that's what that Common Core will bring. It's just more opportunities to learn to think a different way. And I'm very careful about using the word rigor because it scares me, because the Latin definition of the word rigor means stiff, right? And we want, right, rigor mortis, right? So, and what we want to be careful about is, so in my line of the work that I do, GPS, I'm an electrical engineer by trade with a background in physics and mathematics, undergraduate degrees there. So what I've learned through all that is to be very flexible in my thinking, right? It may not work this way, but those opportunities come when you have real problems to work on. Not just the way calculus was taught 500 years ago, and you can get the syllabus from the person who taught it before and get the answers, right? Mathematics and what we talk about here is a language. And when you learn multiple languages, you see commonalities across them. So learning different ways to think, I think that's a part of what K-12 has to provide. And the Common Core will open that up a bit, but I want to make sure it's not so stiff that it causes stiff death, right, rigor mortis. And then finally, I think in our organization, we expect people to come to MITRE Corporation with subject matter expertise, right? We know you're good at what you do. Now can you communicate how good you are with your customer? So there's a very strong customer interaction piece, in a translation of technical information into language for people who make financial decisions. Because generally, it is not a technical person in there that's managing the budgets of these corporations. It's someone who's non-technical. And can you take that technical work and distill it to a point where it's a very simple bullet on a PowerPoint slide, and you only have one slide to give? So that is something I think we should expand and broaden for K through 12. It's just the ability to take the technical information and translate it down to its core, to understand really what does that algorithm mean. Is 5 times 2 the same thing as 2 times 5? Yes, they equal the same, but what do they really mean? Is 5 groups of 2 the same as 2 groups of 5? Would you play basketball with 5 groups of 2, or you play basketball with 2 groups of 5? So there's some understanding of what it means to, at a K, my daughter's in 3rd grade, my son's in 4th grade, so I try to give them the core understanding of what it means to divide and multiply. And at their school, which happens to be a private school, they're learning that almost daily. So I think the beauty of where Common Core will take them is that it will provide that foundation to be flexible and to persevere. And that will lead to, again, self-confidence and self-efficacy.
I think one of the issues is is education being broken in chunks. You graduate from middle school, then you graduate from high school, then there's this chunkiness that's in place. What's the hurry? If you try to get out of college in 4 years right now, you'll be unemployed or moving back home. The job market's tough. Why not take 6 years and go back to do an apprenticeship for 2 years in that journey? In high school, we passed a bill last year to give kids a chance to get out in 3 years, not to get them in college early. We wanted them to go spend a year or two in an intern program before they got into college so that they could get a sense of what's going to happen when they join the workforce. Colleges are telling us the best prepared students they have are the ones who've had a year or two work experience before they signed up as a freshman. The worst prepared students they have are the ones who jump in at 17 as a freshman trying to survive in a semi-adult world. So I think we've got to bust down this concept that there's a exit point and just start marrying. Middle school kids should be able to enter the high school culture and environment at a time where they can grow into it, and if they can get into internships while they're in high school, they should. College should move to that, universities should move to that, and we slow the whole pace down so that it starts being fluid with what's going on right now in our society. And the digital revolution has already taken place, so we're not separating that. We're just trying to merge it by allowing them to carry that into the environment they work in.
This is step one, just getting accurate information out. And having conversations about the importance of this and how it will empower our students, but also how it will help our economy. And to continue to share that message. There are misunderstandings, but I shared at the table earlier, I can't remember a time where education standards were the topic of conversation. So that's a very positive thing, and we've got a few more years to implement, so your support and getting the word out and accurate information.
And I agree. I think communication is a responsibility of our local education foundation boards. And I will definitely be scheduling you to come to Pensacola. But I also think that it's our responsibility to integrate the Common Core standards into our mini teacher grant programs, into our expectations that we, as individual foundations, all put out for our mini grant programs and other things so that we can begin to reinforce that we don't want to be left by the wayside of what the school districts that we serve are moving forward with. We need to make sure that we embed those same principles, professional development opportunities / requirements into what we are doing so that we can stay lockstep and really help the district further Common Core faster.
I don't think there's much to add. Those are great answers.
I follow what they just said.
One of the first steps our commissioner's already made is to go out and have conversations with constituents. He's already doing that, and I think that's vital. And I would agree with the first goal that the folks that were surveyed. Across the nation and in our state, we do have achievement gaps, and that's not acceptable. And we need to dig deeper into the reasons behind that and really put a lot of focus in that area.
Yeah, I don't think that I want that job for a day, but were I to have it. I agree with Mary Jane, and I also think to make that happen, bringing more voices to the table, not traditional voices, maybe those that are sometimes supplemental education service providers to our districts, the YMCAs, the Boys Club, the Girls Club, folks that are practiced at raising achievement among targeted populations, bringing those voices to the table, I think are critical for us to learn from.
That's tough.
It is tough.
I probably would just try to go visit some of the local county superintendents and see where they need help. The reason I say that is last week I was in Hamilton County, and there was a quote, and the person to remain unnamed said, "I wish I could get somebody from down there to come over here to talk to us." So I go visit, and I take the crew so they can see what happens in Hamilton County, one of the lowest performing districts, and just let people see it real and see how they teach. That's what I do that day. If I had one day, I'd say, "Hey, let's go see our 63rd or 64th FCAT county here and see what we can do."
I think we have to make a massive commitment to the infrastructure of technology and public education. We're on the reform movement. We've got some huge initiatives coming. We've got all kinds of things that are headed our way. But if you simply go to Hamilton right now, or go to Liberty or Pensacola and get into the schools, you're not going to find the infrastructure, the technology to support any of these initiatives, not even close. Even the most hybrid examples of, like in Leon County, at the school we visited over there, they barely have the bandwidth to support some of this kind of multiple testing patterns that are going to engage visual simulation movement. We would have to spend 2 years just fully investing in improving the baseline, because if we don't, these reform movements are just simply going to stall out. So I think that would be our first goal for 2 years, to set the stage for the rest of this to unfold.
I will share about the Common Core standards themselves. We have had many discussions with union leadership, and they are very much supporters of the standards, which is great. And they are at the table with us as far as preparing teachers' professional development. So their message is not going to be a barrier to us moving forward with these standards, and that's great news.
The only thing I would suggest is just our laser focus on metrics. I think that we do have the best, or only, maybe still, longitudinal student-centered tracking system in the country. That's still correct, right? The only one in the country. It is the best. And the fact that we chose to pay the extra funding so we can get state comparisons too, for PISA and TIMSS and all of the other international benchmarks and state, NAEP, and other country benchmarks, it's critical, and it is unlike other states. And I think as long as we kind of keep our eyes on the prize of student success, and that takes many forms, whether it is attendance, graduation, GPA, lots of things that we need to be focused on, how many industry certifications are earned, AP placement, test results, everything. I think as long as we keep focused on those metrics, we will be successful, and that we will all be focused on the same end game. And just speaking from the local education foundation that I serve on, we have active engagement from our local teachers union. The past president and the current president both serve on our board, and that has been very interesting for me. Personally, my mother was a 35-year pre-K teacher in Title I schools before it was called Title I, and then when it was. My father, I call it graduated, it's, I guess, supposed to be called retired, as a university vice president. So and they, of course, ended up divorced early in my life. And so I had both ends of the spectrum to learn from as somebody growing up and deciding what I wanted to do with my life. And it is very interesting to me, the two different perspectives from the two educators that raised me, their view on the world and the world of education, really, and responsibilities of education. And having having that voice on our local education foundation has been eye-opening for me. It really helps me better understand perspectives that often result from lack of awareness on both sides of the house, and has helped us bridge kind of that communication gap. So that's just one experience that I've had that has helped in that regard.
And I think that one of the key pieces, which Jennifer talked to early on, as a business person, numbers speak volumes. So our initial effort last year and again this year is to get the information out there in as many different formats as we can. What are the performance? How much money are we spending per? What are the results in terms of longitudinal studies with kids and all the things that we can provide you? And we've got an excellent data source, probably the best in the country. We're going to do an economic security report beginning this year, which will show if you get a degree, what's the chances of you getting full-time employment, and what will your average salary be? And as we post that kind of information to parents, you're not making judgments about whether we should or shouldn't do these programs. We're simply saying this is a reality. And if you make the choice, great. Just know what the options are when you make the choice. And I think that transparency is probably one of the foundations of Florida's success the last 10 years, and we hope to grow it.
First, I'd want to make sure they understand what the Common Core were, and then I'd ask them how they see themselves as supporters and implementers. I think our Teach for America, I call them kids because I'm an old lady, but you know they have a lot of energy. They're very intelligent, and they have chosen to come teach in our schools to support the kids as opposed to go move on to their career. So I would want to have a conversation about how well informed they have been or not, how to improve that, and then as teachers themselves, whether they're in mathematics or in English language arts or another content area, how they can start implementing the literacy standards, make sure students are reading and writing more in their classrooms purposely, not just to assign it. But I'd involve them in the solution. My presentations are pretty about information. I would prefer us all at the tables doing some things so we experience it. And I think they would probably appreciate the opportunity to take a look at some of these standards and how should they be taught, what are the circumstances, and how can we learn from each other. I hope that helps, and I'm sorry I can't go with you. But you can take my information.
I would encourage you to get with Jennifer and Daryl and find out what the job market is in Jacksonville, find out what the jobs are open, what the minimum wage is, and then drill backwards to say why there's Common Core may even have relevance to this whole world. Jacksonville is a red-hot city. I think they're top 10 in IT in the nation right now. So I think you could get some nice numbers that would spell the story that might give you a link back to why Common Core was an initiative in the first place.
Plus the port. The port in Jacksonville is a huge.
The other thing I would...
This is Daryl over here. There you go.
Yeah, we can connect you to Bruce, the Regional Workforce Board Director there in Jacksonville. But the other thing I would say, because of which group of teachers you're talking to, is I think it's important for all of our teachers, and this won't be as much of a concern for these Teach for America teachers, but all of our teachers have been overwhelmed with change over the years. And in many minds, this is just another change. I cannot believe I have to do this again. Well, if Jody Tillman from the Department of Education came over and presented to a group of teachers at Gulf Power 2 weeks ago, and she said, I know what you're all thinking. If I just keep my head down and shut up for 2 more years, this thing will be gone and I won't have to have done it. The realization this is not going anywhere, for people to understand what we have committed to in order to receive the Race to the Top funds and all these great resources that we have to implement it means this is not going away. And for some of our tired teachers, it seems like just another thing, and if I can hunker down until retirement, I can move through it without really having it affect me. It's going to be very important for us to have kind of lead teachers that can really help coach and come up with these actual pragmatic exercises that can be used in the classroom. And that might be an opportunity for these young teachers who are so energetic and passionate based on the choice they've made to do this work they're doing, for them to take a leadership role in that. And we need folks who can do that for the long haul, because this is going to be exhausting for our teachers. I shared with Mary Jane and Mary earlier, my third grader brought home a note from his teacher at the beginning of the year, and his third grade teacher, two of my other boys have also had. Now, one of them is about to graduate from high school, so it was quite a while ago, but she sent home a note that said, parents, please be aware that I am learning as your children are. I will make a commitment. I will always be one day ahead of them. And to me, that was huge, because it helped. And at any time, Lori Mosley's my name, here's my email address, here's my home phone, my cell phone. Call me at any time if you get something that you're not familiar with. And trust me, there are a lot of things coming home that I'm not familiar with. So for her to take that step as probably now 25 to 30-year teacher to say, I'm learning with your student. Let's all learn together. We're going to get through this, and it's going to be better for your student in the long run. That transparency, to use one of Frank's earlier words, I think is huge in building the trust and the community understanding of what this is their students are going through.
I just had to make sure you have your value proposition specified for that area. So back to what Frank said about the demand for jobs, also consider workforce, the economy. Just include that. Not be a general value proposition for why this is good, but show how it fits specifically for their area, their target industries of aviation, port,
Logistics and
logistics,
distribution.
manufacturing. I think that's a good approach as well.
I'll say, representing the energy industry, I've met with Florida Virtual about not just being a certification provider for Florida, but for the country, for some energy industry frameworks or courses that we've put together in certifications that support those or show mastery of those knowledge and skill arenas. We have not moved that far forward in the conversation, but it makes perfect sense to me to consider this. And I would also say that my 10th grader, who's currently taking English honors online, I have spoken more to that teacher than any other high school teacher, because there are required check-in calls with your parents, and we're currently in the fear and love unit, by the way, which is interesting that those two are put together to me. So it requires a lot of parent-student conversation, but it's just very interesting to me the way learning takes place in that medium versus the traditional classroom medium. And I think there's huge opportunity for exploration, particularly of knowledge-based concepts, but I'd really like to get into some conversations about how skill-based concepts can be delivered across virtual media as well.
If we could convince the Senate President, would you come to a committee and
Or
ask that
virtual.
question so we could?
School board member, am I like?
I think the trap, just like Jennifer, we've been engaged almost 4 years with Florida Virtual about getting in there, and I think they're stuck in the world of career ed versus we're not career ed. And even when they get into the conversation, it's almost like a subset. And they're probably a classic example of they haven't integrated that they're not two separate worlds. If you acquire Oracle certification in 12th grade, you've probably, forget taking physics and some other courses, you've shown rigor and relevance that would be good for school and pieces. So if I could talk to you after the
Absolutely.
meeting.
We've done some research with our Economic Development Council on.
So Leon County, I bet you they would volunteer to be a pilot, wouldn't they, Leon?
They might.
That's right.
Wonderful. Dr. Davis, you good? Mary Jane?
Thank you.